Welcome to this Fireside Chat, to the AfCFTA Fireside Chat. Good afternoon in Africa, good morning in New York, bonsoir en Afrique, et bonjour ici à New York. Thank you very much for joining us for our AfCFTA Fireside Chats. Today we will be discussing how Africa's youth can make the One Africa market magic a reality. And before we start, I would like to remind you of a few elements of the housekeeping rules. This event is simultaneously translated into 4 languages: English, French, Arabic, and Portuguese. And we also have sign language. So you click on the icon of the globe here below at the bottom right of your screen, pick the language you want and stick to it. We're also broadcasting live on YouTube, on the UNDP Africa YouTube channel, as well as a few other channels such as You Lead Africa Facebook page at One Young Africa, East Africa Community Youth Ambassadors Platform Twitter page at ESC_YAP, You Lead Africa Twitter page at One Young Africa. We also have sign language interpretation that's available, and it will be live also on Science TV, thanks to the You Lead Science TV partnership. Donc, cet événement est traduit simultanément en français, en anglais, en portugais, et puis en arabique aussi. Pour accéder à l'interprétation, cliquez sur l'icône représentant un globe et choisissez votre langue. Today, we would like to hear from you as much as possible. So please use the Q&A box below to type in your comments and questions. And please do not forget to include your name and who you are and what you do. So with no further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce the convener and host for the event. Ms. Ahunna Eziakonwa is the Assistant Secretary General, Assistant Administrator and Director of UNDP Africa. She has an outstanding career and service in international development, spanning over 20 years in the UN system. She has led UN teams across various countries, including Ethiopia, including Lesotho, Uganda, and others. She's also at the heart of pushing through the Secretary General's reforms in terms of bringing stronger collaboration of regional entities, to work together in the UN system. Above all, she's passionate about young people, she's passionate about development, she's passionate about the Africa Promise, and she's behind pushing the new direction of UNDP Africa, which is really to stop looking at Africa as a place of problems, but rather immense opportunity to be tapped. So it's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Ahunna Eziakonwa, who's our convener today and also our host. Ahunna, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for that, Joy. I want to really say a warm welcome to all of you signing in from all over the world and mostly from Africa to this Africa Continental Free Trade Area Fireside Chat. This is a place where we keep the finger on the pulse of how this continental dream of lifting people out of poverty, of building the Africa we want, and of progressing on the global sustainable development goals can be attained. You know, from where I sit, we see a world that is increasingly unequal. We see a world where, despite huge advancement in technology and in knowledge, we continue to miss opportunities to eliminate disease, conflict, violence, and other ills that we face today in our world. We see huge gaps in governance, and we see a global financial system that is increasingly flawed in its ability to address compelling needs that many countries face. And all of this can be quite frightening and depressing. But I wake up and I take another look and I see something different. I see the ingenuity of the young African leaders in the business field, leaders in the public sector, leaders in the social sector, leaders in the creative sector, I see something else. I see young people not just interested in their own personal progress and interest, but in actually birthing ideas that change and guide a confused world. Therein lies my hope and the excitement that I feel today, and the privilege that I feel to be in a position that offers a platform where we can magnify the voices and the hope that we see amidst this very confused picture. And at UNDP, we are committed to investing in creating more inclusive economies and societies. On 1st of January this year, trade under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement started, giving the One Africa market a unique and real opportunity as a game changer for African countries and their people. And in our fireside chats, we are convening those who are making the magic happen and those who could benefit from it. And we would like to hear all points of view and look for these solutions. We're keeping our finger on that pulse to ensure that this groundbreaking agreement and the opportunity it presents can transform lives of all Africans, not just some Africans, and that we can increase shared prosperity. So I want to thank all of you who have joined us today. You are signing up for something very exciting and very interesting and very productive. You have signed up from across the continent and also in the diaspora. So this is a global event. Today, we debate Africa's present and Africa's future with a team of young, dynamic Africans leading extraordinary ventures. Africans who are keen to make a difference for people, their country, for the continent, and for the world. So come with me on a journey to meet them. As we travel, we're going to begin today with a young woman who I have never met, but have come to respect as I read about her background. I spotted her quite by coincidence on one of the platforms. I read about her background and I asked my colleagues to get in touch with her because I thought she was quite extraordinary. Astria Fataki, a visionary entrepreneur in the fields of energy, socioeconomic development, and education. Originally from the Democratic Republic of Congo, she is one of Forbes Africa's 30 under 30 that we need to keep our eyes on her. She's defying the odds. In addition to her energy business, through her YouTube channel, she is helping young Africans to develop critical life skills for a path to success. And today, Astria will act as co-host, keeping the pulse of the conversations happening on social media through the Q&A box below. At any time during this event, feel free to post your comments or questions in the Q&A box, and Astria and her team will bring them up during our conversation. This is a conversation. So Astria, in a few minutes, just tell us a little bit about your Pan-African project and what the free trade area could mean for you.
Well, thank you so much, Ahunna, and the entire UNDP team for inviting me to co-host this event. It's an extreme pleasure and honor for me to be part of this extremely important conversation for African youth. And I feel especially concerned by this thematic because I am the president and founder of a Pan-African organization called Energy Generation. And this organization aims to train young people coming from all over the continent. We had the chance to welcome youth, young people from 17 different countries as of now to become entrepreneurs in the field of energy, health, and agribusiness, because we truly believe that those thematics will be at the heart of the African development. And since we are a Pan-African organization, of course, the dream of a Pan-African market that will be open to all type of trade is, of course, something that we are looking at very, very closely, because for us, our success is the success of our entrepreneurs, those young Africans that are so passionate about transforming Africa to offer a better future to the continent and its inhabitants. So when I work with entrepreneurs on a daily basis, they have this anger to go beyond their borders, because, you know, of course, we speak Africa, we often refer to Africa as a continent, and there is this but there is this very large variety of realities. You know, the Benin and Nigeria are countries that share a border, but that in some aspects are worlds apart, right? But at the same time, the beauty of our continent is that they are a real shared identity. And therefore, when an entrepreneur launches a business in Togo, they want to be able to go to Benin, to go to even Nigeria or even Ethiopia without too much trouble, and being able to have some transparency on what is happening so that they can build companies that will be leaders at a world level. That's the potential that this free trade agreement offers to the youth of the continent. And I might switch in French here for our French audience, parce que effectivement, quand on parle de cette problématique autour de cet accord de libre-échange en Afrique, il y a énormément de conversations en anglais, pas suffisamment en français, donc on est vraiment très, très, très heureux d'avoir un public francophone aujourd'hui, puisque justement en zone francophone, cette idée de pouvoir construire des marchés régionaux transfrontaliers est d'autant plus cruciale à mon sens que partout ailleurs en Afrique. Donc c'est vraiment avec énormément de passion que je suis cette conversation et que je suis, comme je le disais tout à l'heure, honorée de pouvoir co-animer cette discussion aujourd'hui autour de la zone de libre-échange. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. Excuse me, Astria. Thank you for pointing out that very important point of Africa being diverse, but also having a shared identity. Entrepreneurs beyond borders. That is indeed an important anchor for the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. You know, UNDP is today co-organizing this event with ULEAD, a continent-wide movement that's promoting One Young Africa. They are providing leadership across a range of areas, such as youth in the AfCFTA. And thanks to ULEAD, today we have a truly continental audience, consisting of youth movements from the Eastern, from the Horn, from Southern Africa, from Central Africa, from Western Africa, and also from North Africa regions. The founder and director of ULEAD Africa, Mr. Ivan Atuyambe, is with us. Ivan, please tell us a little bit about the most important work you are doing with youth in relation to AfCFTA. Over to you.
Thank you thank you very much, Joy. And it's a great honor, Miss Ahunna Eziakonwa, for us to be here and be hosted by you. And also, I am happy to say that I'm seated right here with our Executive Director of Training Center for Development Cooperation, Ms. Makena Mobobia. She prefers to let the young people take the front seat. Albeit, I'm the founder and director of UNID Africa, and this tremendous program, I have had the opportunity of leading it since 2017, and our major work is mobilizing, empowering, and connecting African young people to work as one in the areas of participation in political governance and the area of participation in economic governance. And of late, we are working with partners across the continent, including the East African community and other RECs. We are establishing partnerships with the aim of creating a one young Africa in which dreams are born and young people become leaders. And in the CFTA, we've been since last year working on a flagship initiative, the first on the continent, that is seeking to understand if young people know the CFTA, if they know they are a role player or an actor, and what role they think they can play, and what capacities and policy gaps they see that governments, policymakers, private sector, and other actors can support them to overcome in order to achieve and harvest the best and maximum out of the CFTA. Thank you very much.
Many thanks for that, Ivan, and really for all the work that you do on this issue and in creating the One Young Africa. You know, let's now get into the conversation. So with us today, we have young people from every corner of the continent who are looking at new ways to do business and to support communities and to transform lives, not only in their own countries, but also across several locations in Africa. As Astria said, these young people dream of going beyond borders. We will listen to their stories to learn and understand their journeys. We will also ask them how they made it and where they situate themselves in the AfCFTA. We have a power panel consisting of exporters, entrepreneurs, and policymakers as well. And all of them have one thing in common: they are young and they are demanding for more. So allow me to introduce them as we get into the conversation. Let me start with the AfCFTA Secretariat itself to paint a picture for us in 5 minutes of where we are on the AfCFTA. How can young people maximize the opportunities that it creates? And for this, I want to invite Mr. Peter Joy Sawuno, who is a senior advisor to the Secretary General of the AfCFTA Secretariat. Peter, tell us, where are we? Peter, we cannot hear you, or at least I can't.
Oh, okay. Hey, my sincerest apologies. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, Her Excellency, can you hear me now? Sincerest apologies.
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, no, so I was just saying thank you very much for the introduction, and thanks to Joy for putting this together. Greetings from His Excellency, the Secretary General. So to answer the question of where we are now, what I've quickly done is to put together like just some 5 slides just to share with everyone and just to explain where we are now, and then the questions then can follow from there. So in terms of the institutional structure of the AfCFTA, if you look lower down, so if you look lower down, we have the AfCFTA Secretariat. So the AfCFTA Secretariat is the administrative body that is coordinating the implementation of the agreement. Recently, you may have heard the structure has been approved by the Council of Ministers. We have roughly about 296 staff that will be employed at the Secretariat. And then what His Excellency, the Secretary General, has also done is that the structure of the Secretariat is more in the form of a pyramid shape. So it's heavy at the bottom. So what this means is that His Excellency, the Secretary General of the AfCFTA Secretariat, wants to bring in as many young people as possible into the organization, and then they can then go through the structures to the top level. If you look left to the institutional structure, we also have the DSB, which is the Dispute Settlement Body. It's a sui generis body. It doesn't, in a way, report to the senior trade officials, but in terms of the rights and obligations arising from the implementation of the agreement, the Dispute Settlement Body is there to handle that. Another key institutional structure we have in the entire AfCFTA structure is the committees and then the subcommittees. So, for example, you may have heard of the Committee on Trade in Goods. In terms of all negotiations relating to trade in goods, this is where the negotiations take place. So you may have heard of the tariff concession, which then would allow state parties to move goods from one country or from one end of the continent to the other. In terms of the actual negotiations and the modalities for the negotiations, all of that takes place within the Committee on Trade in Goods. There's also the Committee on Trade in Services. And that Committee on Trade in Services, in terms of services negotiations, Her Excellency mentioned Astria in terms of the work she's doing in energy. That specifically falls within the domain of the Committee on Trade in Services. Of course, there are some committees as well, and these subcommittees would then deliberate, send it to the committees as well. If you look at the higher, just slightly above the AfCFTA Secretariat, we have the Committee of Senior Trade Officials. In a way, I'm showing you this institutional structure for you then to understand the scope within which we are operating, the institutional structure within which the AfCFTA sits. So just making the point that slightly above the Secretariat, we have the Committee of Senior Trade Officials. Previously, prior to the establishment of the AfCFTA Secretariat, we used to have the negotiating forum. So the negotiating forum basically was where all the negotiations were taking place. But now, given the fact that we have the Committee of Senior Trade Officials, this is where negotiation currently is taking place within the context of the implementation of the agreement. Higher up on the senior trade officials, we also have the Council of Ministers with responsibility for trade. The Council of Ministers with responsibility for trade has some powers to adopt documents which would then be forwarded to the Assembly of Heads of State. So I'll give you a typical example. Currently, the structure for the AfCFTA Secretariat, we have about 296 positions. So the AfCFTA Secretariat then prepares that document. It is then sent to the Committee of Senior Trade Officials. They would work on it and then make a recommendation to the Council of Ministers with responsibility for trade. At the last meeting of the Council of Ministers with responsibility for trade in May, they adopted the structure and made a recommendation to the Assembly for the Assembly to approve it. So typically, this is how it happens. I'm just reiterating the fact that the institutional structure is very key in terms of the implementation of the AfCFTA agreement. If we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so another key overview. So in also understanding where we are currently, the question may also be asked in terms of how many signatures do we have in terms of ratification and then other things. So as some of you may have heard, in terms of signatures of the AfCFTA, currently we have 54. It is only the state of Eritrea that is the only remainder. But as the Council of Ministers have directed, we should put in more efforts to make sure by close of year 2021, all member states are on board. For ratifications as well, we have 40 African countries that have ratified. So the key thing is to ratify after, the key thing is to sign after the signature, then you have to ratify. After also the ratification process, you also have to take the additional step of depositing your instrument of ratification in order to qualify as a state party to the agreement. So in all, we have 40 countries that have currently ratified the agreement. We have 37 countries that are state parties. So 37 meaning that these countries have obligations or they have rights and obligations under the AfCFTA agreement. These countries have also indicated their readiness to implement the AfCFTA agreement. There's also, beyond the signature and then the ratification, we also have the other obligation for member states to submit tariff concessions and schedules of specific commitment. So for the tariff concession, we have 42 African countries that have submitted to the AfCFTA Secretariat, and that 42 also includes 4 regional economic communities. So for the 4 regional economic communities, there are also customs unions. And if you are a customs union, it is best if you submit your schedule together with your other members, so you cannot submit it individually. So if you look at the list of countries, we have CEMAC, we have DAC, we have ECOWAS, and then SACU. So these regs are customs unions, so together they have collectively submitted their offers to the AfCFTA Secretariat. Then if you come to the area of trading services, in terms of specific commitment, we also have 35 countries that have also submitted to the AfCFTA Secretariat. If we can go to the next slide as well. I know I have just 5 minutes, so I'll try and rush through. Okay, then the other key thing would be, what are the key dates? So March 2018, that was when the agreement was open for signature. Then May 2019, the agreement entered into force. In July 2019, the operational phase of the AfCFTA was launched in Niamey. In February 2020, that was when His Excellency the Secretary General was elected as the first Secretary General of the AfCFTA Secretariat. And then, as some of you may have also heard, in August 2020, we had the official commissioning and handing over of the AfCFTA Secretariat building by the government of Ghana to the African Union Commission. Then on the 1st of January this year, we started trading. When I was going through some of the questions that were being asked, there was a question from, I think, Ngeno, asking whether we've actually started trading or something to that effect. Yes, we've started trading on the 1st of January. But if you start trading, start of trading, it's not just a one-off event, it's actually a process. So there are a number of things that needed to be done and actually to bring the AfCFTA into effect. So as I have said earlier, even though we have 42 tariff concessions, even though countries have submitted 35 schedules of specific commitment to the AfCFTA Secretariat, these schedules would have to be translated into something legally implementable at the level of the member state. So it's not just a one-off event, but it's a process that takes time to come into effect. If we can go to the next slide. Okay, so then in terms of the architecture of the AfCFTA, so basically we have the agreement establishing the AfCFTA, and then there are a number of protocols. So we have the protocol on trading goods, there's protocol on trading services, there's protocol on the rules and procedures for the settlement of disputes. So for the protocol on trading goods, services, and then there's dispute settlement, these were negotiated as part of phase 1. For phase 2, we have investment, competition policy, intellectual property rights, e-commerce, women in trade. And then there's also an adjustment facility that will accompany the implementation of the AfCFTA. We go to the next slide. Okay, so then the key question would come, what does this then mean for the youth? What does this then mean for young entrepreneurs on the continent? So having the AfCFTA provides an enlarged market size and enhanced trade. As some of you may know, we have 55 countries that are involved in this. So having 55 countries, it makes it the largest FTA in terms of the number of participating countries. So then this also brings the market size, then helps if you want to expand your business. The other key component is that under the agreement, under the protocol on trading goods, member states have negotiated the removal of trade barriers or the elimination of trade barriers among state parties. Once tariffs are also eliminated, once non-tariff barriers are eliminated amongst countries, it then helps you in terms of enhanced economic efficiency, lower cost of trade transactions, and then boosting real incomes. Another component is also improved investment prospect. There's also more employment prospect for especially the youth. And here at the AfCFTA Secretariat, part of the vision of His Excellency the Secretary General is to establish an AfCFTA academy, an academy that will train the youth. So for example, they'll come to the AfCFTA Secretariat, spend 2 years or even a year learning about the AfCFTA process. And then thereafter, they can go back into their countries and then help propagate the story of the AfCFTA. So the AfCFTA, all in all, holds a lot of promises for the youth in terms of employment creation, in terms of removal of trade barriers to trade, and then improve business opportunities. I will just stop here, hand over the floor back to Her Excellency, and then if there are questions, I could come back to answer. Thank you so much.
You're muted, you're muted.
Thank you, Peter, for that. In the interest of time, I want to go quickly to Edith Nyange. Edith, you are the CEO of Ariel Roaring for Africa, ARFA. You represent the East Africa region. You provide disruptive business models to entrepreneurial finance and leading and thriving in the digital era. Your company, registered in Kenya, works with entrepreneurs in Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria, Ghana, and South Africa. And you aim to create over 100,000 jobs in Africa by 2030. How do you, Edith, see the AfCFTA changing your prospects and also the prospects of young entrepreneurs in Africa? You have 3 minutes.
Thank you for that, Ahunna. As a social and serial entrepreneur, who actually, as a result of the pandemic and just how global the world has become, I've created 50,000 jobs to date. At 26 years. So I think that's a good feat for my age so far. And the Ariel goal to get to 100,000 jobs is looking like a smaller goal. So when we set it at the time, it felt very ambitious. But then now with the free trade agreement being in place and with Africa really moving to the next step, because if you think about it, this is the largest agreement since the WTO was formed, right? There's not been anything like this. And this is going to be the largest trade area worldwide, with I think $3 trillion worth of access and even more being provided. So when I speak to entrepreneurs and when I speak to young people, the AfCFTA is great, right? However, it is what we make it. It's not about governments. It's not about institutions. It's about us as young people. And what are we doing with this agreement, right? We've been given a great tool, but then how are we actually implementing it to make a difference? And when Africa really becomes one space, one free space, and this becomes a reality for each one of us, two things are going to happen, right? Number one, we'll see sifting, right? What do I mean? When you have South Africans accessing goods from Nigerians and people in Morocco, you know, reaching out to Ugandans for supply, or, you know, whatever is happening, what will happen is there will be sifting of those who actually put in the work and began to build disruptive business models. So what we like to call entrepreneurs are actually business owners, because entrepreneurs can scale. They can take the idea, set it up in Nigeria. They can take the idea, set it up in Egypt. They can take the idea, set it up in South Africa. Why? Because it's unique. It's not copy and paste. It's not, I saw you doing this, then I started doing it myself. That's a business owner. You give an entrepreneur $1 million, they bring $2 million at the end of the year. You give a business owner $1 million, they add for you 10% top up on top of what you'd given them. So what we're going to see is that separation happening. Then number two, what we're going to see is job creation for those who had positioned themselves in the market. So what do I mean? There will be job creation, but because now companies know that they can access from 55 countries, they won't settle for anybody. They want the best. I eat it for my companies. I want the best. And the best might not be in Kenya. The best might be, I don't know, in Ethiopia. The best might be in Djibouti. I don't know, right? So in terms of what I would say with this agreement, it's an amazing tool, young people, really amazing. But it's for you to begin to what we call level up, right? It's for you to become intentional, right? With your business, with your career. And then the one thing that Africa needs to realize is that this is our chance to rebuild the continent, but not just rebuild it, but rebuild it better, bigger, and stronger. What do I mean? The one thing that we're still not doing intentionally is sustainable business. When I say sustainable business, I mean you have integrated an ESG framework into your business model. I mean your business goes beyond you. I mean, you're actually leaving a legacy. You're not in business for the revenue, for the money. That is all good. It's okay. Everyone make bank. But at the end of the day, you want your business to be able to sing a song of pollution reduction, job creation, economic empowerment, name it. But at the core, this needs to be integrated at early stages, especially startups. And sustainable business cannot be a by the way that, you know, the UN comes and talks to us about. No, it needs to be a way of life. Because the one thing that Africa has is more businesses than the rest of the world. But why do we still have more problems than the rest of the world? And yet business is the answer to all of our problems, to poverty, to corruption, to all of the things that we complain about every single day. But it must be sustainable. And even as we use this agreement to, you know, trade goods, services, intellectual property, investment, let's please remember that sustainability needs to be integrated into everything that we're doing. It must go beyond ourselves. And then business owners, guess what? We're 80% of the GDP. We will begin to make a difference. If the private sector begins going in a certain direction, guess what? Governments have to follow. And if we begin to go down the sustainability route, even though the agreement is in place, guess what? Everyone else will follow. So what I'm here preaching, because I thought this would be forgotten, is Africa will literally use this agreement depending on how us young Africans utilize it. We are the future. We cannot be complacent. You cannot be mediocre. You have to be the best in your industry, the best in your space. You have to stand out. If access is all over and all of us are one market, guess what? We all want the best. So become the best as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a young person in the employment area. Just be the best that you can, even as all these jobs are being created, and they will be, right? Some of us are on that agenda and mandate. you get into position. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Edith. I was getting goosebumps as you were speaking. You should be working for UNDP, but I'm pretty sure we can't afford you. And congratulations, my dear, created 50,000 jobs already. So you will exceed your target. I can see that. Wise words to young people out there. AfCFTA is what we make it. Do we still have Tamara online? I wanted to call her next. Tamara, I'm gonna attempt all of your names here. Miss Tamara Mutotekema Busamba, who is CEO Agridis. Tamara, you are from Gabon, and your company is engaged in food production, cassava to be specific. You have also innovated a great deal with your app, which is called Wagui, applying digital solutions to support farmers with market information. You have also been part of the Tony Elumelu Foundation, which UNDP partners with. So Tamara, what are some of the obstacles in your way in getting to markets outside of your country, Gabon? And how can these obstacles be overcome? We understand you will speak in French, ladies and gentlemen, there is French translation. Therefore, please, let's proceed in French with Tamara.
Ok, merci beaucoup de me donner la parole. Alors, je suis Tamara et je viens du Gabon. Je suis la fondatrice d'Agridis, qui est une entreprise de production agricole, principalement dans le manioc. Et on a effectivement développé une application de conseil agricole pour accompagner les autres agriculteurs. Alors, aujourd'hui, il faut reconnaître que l'agriculture africaine a quand même beaucoup de difficultés, notamment une faible productivité et une faible mécanisation. Alors, aujourd'hui, on travaille avec des pays comme le Cameroun, la République démocratique du Congo ou le Congo-Brazzaville, mais les difficultés qu'on rencontre sont principalement d'ordre infrastructurel. Donc, ça veut dire qu'il y a un problème d'infrastructure routière. On a des procédures administratives qui sont longues, lourdes et lentes, et également des taxes douanières, évidemment, qui peuvent être trop ou élevées. Ce sont les principales difficultés que je pourrais noter ici. Et donc, la zone de libre-échange est une formidable opportunité pour nous parce qu'on a la possibilité de nous déployer, de développer davantage nos activités dans d'autres pays, sur d'autres marchés, mais cette zone-là doit pouvoir représenter vraiment une véritable opportunité. Ça l'est déjà, mais concrètement, il faut qu'une harmonisation procédurielle soit faite dans tous les pays pour faciliter donc les procédures administratives. Si on veut vendre dans l'un ou l'autre des pays, il faut que les procédures soient les mêmes. Il faut évidemment les infrastructures adaptées pour le transport des marchandises. Parce qu'aujourd'hui, on fait dans l'agroalimentaire, il y a des procédures particulières en ce qui concerne notre secteur. Et donc, si on a des routes ou des voies ferrées qui ne sont pas adaptées, qui sont en mauvais état, au niveau de nos coûts de production, on sera en perte. Je voudrais rajouter aussi que lorsqu'on parle de zone de libre-échange, il faut qu'on soit compétitif, qu'on ait des produits de qualité, qu'on ait des entreprises compétitives. Et pour cela, il serait important donc qu'il y ait des renforcements de capacités pour booster donc la compétitivité des entreprises sur le plan local, pourquoi pas, afin qu'elles soient concurrentielles sur d'autres marchés. Et également pour ajouter, lorsqu'on a la possibilité de vendre dans un autre pays, de se déployer dans un autre pays, on a évidemment besoin de financement. Donc ce serait important que les entreprises, s'il faut parler du secteur agricole, que les entreprises soient soutenues sur le plan financier pour pouvoir capter les opportunités d'investissement que pourrait représenter la zone de libre-échange.
Thank you so much, Tamara. Merci beaucoup for that. It was very real. I think you brought it down to what is real. We're not here talking theory and rhetorics. What is the real economy of the AfCFTA? And the 3 points that you have put on the table, I hope that policy and decision makers are listening. Infrastructure is fundamental. It's not going to happen without infrastructure, particularly for the heavy industries like food, but also administrative procedures that need to be eased, particularly from the point of view of harmonization from country to country, because if we're going to have entrepreneurs without borders, we need that harmonization to happen. You can't have a disconnect from country to country. Let me now, with pleasure, turn to Adebola Williams. Is Adebola in the house, please? Can someone confirm?
Good afternoon from Lagos.
Adebola is there.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So Adebola, you are Group CEO of RED, RED for Africa, arguably the continent's largest portfolio of youth media brands, which include Red Media Africa, Statecraft Inc., the Future Awards Africa, and Why Niger. So what challenges you, Adebola, as you are navigating all these very interesting routes, and where do solutions lie?
Good morning and good afternoon from Lagos. Can you hear me clearly?
You're coming through loud and clear. We can also see you well.
Excellent. I mean, I think that the AfCFTA is a great platform at this time on the continent. And for our business, for a lot of young people, I think that it is important to put in perspective that beyond the products and services that we sell across the continent that are tangible, if we really also truly want this to serve young people, we must pay attention to the tools of the time and to the different products and services that this generation is actually invested in. And some of them are actually not necessarily, goods and services that you carry around, but talent and entertainment, media and technology, fashion and the whole creative space. So in doing the policies and all the, fine tuning around this agreement, we must factor in how we're able to purchase, and pay adequately, and also protect intellectual property, across continents, name registrations, trademarks, and many things, because the generation that you're dealing with is trading in a different capital, not necessarily just agriculture and the big, heavy stuff. The challenges that my business particularly will have faced, in doing business across the continent would be one, bias and trust. There is a bias and trust, that you deal with as a Nigerian trading across the continent. Some spanning from just general perception and poor storytelling, both by Nigerians and both by non-Nigerians who have refused to lend themselves to deeper knowledge and to truly, understand and get contextual evidence to whatever perception that they might have. One of the most famous, bias that I deal with is that all Nigerians are so aggressive. They come into a country and they want to lead and they want to take over a certain space and want to be treated preferentially, but what they fail to realize is that is actually, some value that I think we should be able to emulate across the continent, a continent of relentless people, tenacious people who want to make the best anywhere they go, but of course your strength can also be a shadow. So sometimes, that desire and tenacity can also be used for other things that are not very good. But it's important that we always know that, we cannot use one brush to paint everyone. There is also the bias and trust about the quality of products and services that we sell to each other on the continent. There was a time when China was seen as the place where you get the cheap and poor quality. Today in Africa, our leaders are giving, giving all their treasures to China to come and build their roads. Now we look to China for quality. How did China go from being the country where you looked upon as the poor and cheap products to the one where we now go to for high quality products? Oftentimes on the continent, we look at each other as selling subpar, and we have to go to the West to find quality. There is a failure of storytelling to be able to fix that and show that we truly have the competence to serve each other with quality. An example of this would be that in my work, where we do governance communication and we work with presidents and people that aspire for office across the continent, I remember that after we worked with President Muhammadu Buhari in Nigeria and did rebranding and won the election and went to Ghana, they sourced us because they had seen the work we had done in Nigeria. But I know that there was also a big, a question on, these guys from Africa, can they do the job? Because before we got into the electioneering space, people usually turn to the Astria and all the big companies in America who work with the White House. And suddenly there are these young people from Africa who know the market, who understand the pulse of the people and can do a better job. But hey, they are just Africans. And Africans have been told not to trust one another because we assume that we do not have the competence and capacity to deliver the excellence that we require from one another. And so we had to deal with that bias, and try to change that. So there is a lot of perception capital that is being, frittered away on the table. Then I think that this agreement must pay a lot of attention to building the perception capital that actually makes Africans buy from each other. It is one thing for me to have my money to purchase. It is another for me to believe in your product, believe in your brand promise, and be able to be provoked to act according to what you say. So I would advise that this agreement and the president, the leaders of this, program, spend quite a lot of time in the storytelling to show Africans that you could truly buy from one another. The other thing to think about beyond the media, which is my core work, is that products and services on the continent cannot go round. When we want to consult in a country like Equatorial Guinea, it takes me stopping in 3 countries or 2 to 3 countries, getting to the airport and having to still call the president or the minister or someone to verify my acceptance into the country. We cannot trade that way. You cannot have such a logistics nightmare. If I want to go from Nigeria to Liberia to do my work, our election consultancy, because we work across the continent, I need to go from Lagos maybe to Ghana, Ghana to Abidjan to Liberia. If I want to go to Senegal, we worked in Senegal with President Macky Sall for almost 2 years in his last election. And I would have to go from Lagos, I think, to maybe Togo or something. They will stop again in one other country before we stop in Gambia. And then from Gambia, we go to Dakar. So I leave Nigeria at about 8 p.m. and I get to Dakar at about 2 a.m., stopping in 2 or 3 countries within West Africa. So things like that, this agreement must pay attention to. And it's in 2 folds. 1, solve the bottlenecks, both for products and commodities, as well as for talent, technology, media, fashion, and general creative space, because that is the stock in trade for young people today. From whiskey to Shatawale to Caspar Nouveau, all of them putting our countries on the map with their talent. So it is one thing to solve the logistical problems, but it is another to also solve the storytelling problems. Storytelling on one angle by showing that these problems have been solved, so that people assume it hasn't been solved, can have new information. The other storytelling is to give some faith onto the products from the continent, to bring faith. And the final thing is to build a perception capital. It is a perception capital that people can buy from. I remember when I was in Clark, Atlanta, doing my Mandela Washington Fellowship Program, my project for that fellowship was to build a website, an Amazon for Africa, that gave people the power to purchase artwork from Kenya, shea butter from Ghana, and fabric from Nigeria. I wanted Africans to be able to purchase products from one another, and I wanted the world to be able to buy from an authentically sourced platform for Africa, and not a cultural appropriation where a designer in America takes our fashion, takes something synonymous to Africa and puts their label on it and puts an outrageous price on it. And the women in Kokrobite or the women in Ogidon in Osun State who are doing the tie and dye are not able to get the value of all their hard work. So these are the issues that I think that this agreement needs to pay attention to for us to truly be able to benefit from it as young Africans.
Wonderful. Thank you, Adebola, for that. You hit on hugely important points that are not often talked about: the perception capital and the trust capital, both of which are so fundamental in making this agreement a success. I want to now turn to Astria. Let us hear from you, Astria. What's going on in social media? What reactions are we getting from our audience?
Well, the conversation is extremely active on social media. It's kind of buzzing here. There are many comments and interesting ideas coming from youth all over the continent. I see DRC, I see Uganda, I see Kenya. So a lot of reaction. And from what I see, because of course we won't be able to address them all, but there are two main topics, two main ideas that are coming out that are interesting. The first one is around, of course, youth. How can youth be involved, and most importantly, how can they have access to actual knowledge to act in this new context? And another one, a very important topic, is around security. So beyond business, how do we navigate this environment? So maybe I would like to bring those points to the panel's attention and start with a question to Mr. Peter Sereno. Basically, we have a question from James Kisoro from Kampala, Uganda. James would like to know, how can more youth be encouraged into civic space as a catalyst for social, political, and economic transformation, as well as cultural sustainability for Africa? Peter, the question is for you. I'm not sure if Peter can hear us. Maybe he has some trouble. So maybe I can ask this question to Edith, because you made a very compelling point earlier regarding how youth should engage and really take ownership over this process, but in a very concrete way. How can they engage in this process? We had a comment on YouTube from Grace Dorong, who says that young should create youth-led organizations first in their country that will then, be able to reunite at a regional, then a continental level. What do you think about this proposal?
The proposal in the sense of having, okay, so this is how I want to simplify it for you. When you identify any gap in the market, right? Any problem, be it lack of information around the AfCFTA, or another issue. As an entrepreneur, what makes our DNA so unique is that you don't just identify this problem, you have to build a solution to satisfy the problem. You have a lot of people building companies, which are good, but they're building companies around a product or a service. They're not building companies around a gap or a lack in the market. So when you build this organization at a local, then regional, and then continental stage, as it grows, of course, that's a major thing. Scale and growth is everything in business. If you're not scaling, you're not growing, you're not in business. I don't know what you're doing. But in this sense, even as you identify, let's say, the lack of information around the AfCFTA, this is now for you to sort of answer that call rather than asking the UNDP, who may already be busy with a lot of development work that they're doing for the continent. How can you, okay, as an entrepreneur, begin to build solutions at your level? Right? And if really everyone in the African continent begins thinking like this, not a Kenyan phrase a lot of people use is serikali saidia, which means government help us. I hate that because I look at it as, Edith, I have seen this problem, unemployment. Here's my solution to the continent. So if you're seeing a problem, where's your solution? The only reason you're seeing it is because you're the one to solve it, right? And if you begin taking your small steps at a local, at a regional level, then guess what will happen? The UNDP, they will notice you, and then they will support your solution. The AfCFTA and all of these different organizers trying to support the African continent, they will see you, they will notice you, and they will support you. And the only way that this agreement can actually become a reality within all these different segments of the African continent, because again, the agreement is great, but we also have gaps. Gaps in the sense that not all countries within the continent are accessible. So like Central Africa, they have infrastructure issues, right? There are financial infrastructure issues, and I'm not going to focus on that. But even with all these different barriers that maybe we still need to work around, how can you start to become a solution so that the AfCFTA can work better? Right? So every single tool that we're being given as young people, it's not going to be a magical answer. It's not because something has been signed, all of a sudden it's a miracle and now we're going to become one Africa. No, it's actually for us to put in the work. So for especially those trying to build at a local level and at a regional level, another thing that entrepreneurs come to me with is they are very frustrated and they tend to say, oh, Edith, I built this, I'm launching it in Kenya, it's not working. Or I'm launching it in Nigeria, it's not working. And my question is this, you might have the right, or my statement is this, you might have the right product or service, but you're in the wrong market. So thank God for this agreement, because guess what? You can move to another market, right? If it's not working in Ghana, it might work in Somalia. Those might be your correct customers. So look at the agreement really in its raw and honest sense and implement it in the best possible way that you can, being realistic also in terms of growth. If you're not thinking growth from the beginning, there's no way you can begin to integrate growth as you go. It needs to really be at the core, even as you're starting. I hope I answered that question. But Peter was also on, so I hope he has a better answer.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Edith, for this.
Apologies, Astria, I was off, but I'm back on. Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Peter. And just to make a quick comment before I give you the floor, Peter, on Edith's intervention. Of course, I'm myself an entrepreneur. I believe in entrepreneurship as a real catalyst for development in Africa. But as we often say, an entrepreneur without a team, is no one. Without my team, I wouldn't be where I am today. And no, not everybody on the continent has this inspiration or even this willingness to become entrepreneurs. So what are the benefits and the way that youth can, and people in general, youth, women, everyone on the continent can actually seize this opportunity of the AfCFTA? And this may be linked to the other topic that I spotted earlier about security, you know, because this integration, of course, will allow business to grow smoothly across the continent, but business without security, without trust, in challenging, sometimes even conflict environments, it's not possible. So, Peter, this question is maybe a little bit more sensitive, if I can say so, but what are your take on this? How can this free trade agreement generate positive externality beyond business and on those structural aspects that support a healthy business environment?
Okay, thank you very much, Astria, for the question. Specifically on the question of to do with security, you know very well, this cannot be done. In terms of the actual implementation of the AfCFTA on the ground cannot be done without having peace, without having security on the continent. So that is why jointly we're working with the African Union Commission. They have complementary policies, which is to ensure that, like for example, the Peace and Security Department at the African Union Commission, they have a role to play in terms of working with the member state to ensure there's peace across the continent, so that when the goods want to move from one country to the other, they can move. You can have a typical case where, for example, if on the borders, you have challenges of security, then a good from one country to the other cannot move across the border. So you need peace, you need security in order for the goods to move across the border. And then in terms of the opportunities for the youth, as I said earlier on, a lot of what is happening today is that a lot of the youth are going into digital trade, e-commerce. So it was for this reason, and as some of you may recall, e-commerce was actually part of Phase 3 negotiations, but last year at the extraordinary summit of heads of state, there was a decision that was taken that we front load the Phase 3 issues to be part of Phase 2. So what they have basically done is that as part of the Phase 2 negotiations, we are also going to negotiate digital trade or e-commerce. So that also then provides more opportunities for the youth who are mainly into e-commerce, who are mainly into e-trade as well. And then as one of the colleagues said earlier, in terms of the enlarged market, this, as I said earlier on, the biggest free trade area in terms of the number of participating countries, the youth can then seize the opportunities to move from one country to the other. As some of you may recall, in 2008 March, when the agreement was open for signature, one of the other complementary policies that was also open for signature was a free movement protocol. So the free movement protocol, yes, enabling you to move from one country to the other. It's rather unfortunate on that particular day of signature, we didn't have many countries signing onto the free movement protocol. But then as part of the protocol on trading services, we also have a commitment of member states or state parties, like movement of business people, business persons across the borders. So within the context of the trading services negotiations, we are also fast tracking that. So that also then provides more opportunities for young entrepreneurs that want to travel across the borders to do businesses in other countries to also take advantage of some of the opportunities provided under the AfCFTA.
Great, thank you very much, Peter. You actually also mentioned elements that would answer the question of Dina Elizabeth, who was asking about how can we encourage that signatory countries will actually implement and adopt the agreement and maybe even report on their progress? I think that's a very interesting question and point that maybe we will be able to discuss a bit more later. But coming back to this youth entrepreneurship issue and question, we have a video message from a young entrepreneur, Terafa Makaza, from Zimbabwe, who is also in the audience today. And Terafa tries to improve the quality of services in his home country and now in Kenya, where he's developing a new application to offer people with quality services in most housework jobs that you will need to be done, basically. Adebola mentioned earlier the importance of the quality of services. So let's watch this video now.
Hello everyone, my name is Tafara Makaza. I'm a Generation 17 youth leader, and I'm also the Chief Technology Officer of Fixa Rwanda. Our startup connects verified informal sector workers with job opportunities from corporates and households. Our work involves vetting blue-collar workers. We do technical skills assessments, and then we connect them to job opportunities using a technology platform that's accessible to corporates and also households. In addition to that, we also offer value additions to these informal sector workers, such as access to microloans, work insurance, and also a savings fund. And I'm looking forward to speaking with you more about this. Thank you.
Amazing. So that's a testimony of a young entrepreneur that is working cross-border, and I think that is very a good illustration of what we are talking about here. So I'm going back quickly to the chat to see the messages, because you can see that sometimes I'm a bit distracted because there is a lot going on, beaucoup de choses qui se passent en même temps et énormément de questions intéressantes. Pour rebondir sur cette question du business transfrontalier, to continue on this question of creating cross-border country, because this question is coming back over and over again. I would like to address to ask Mr. Abidin Olasupo, who's the co-founder and CEO of D-Hub Innovation Center, to come up here and to tell us what is the advice that he would give to young people who would like to create cross-border businesses.
All right. Thank you very much. Good afternoon from Nigeria here. I'm quite excited to be here, and I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to lend my voice to this important conversation. I will firstly start by saying there's a need for young entrepreneurs to know that starting a business is a serious business itself. Because, we've gotten a whole lot of wrong perception that, entrepreneurship is the only way through which you can solve the problem of unemployment. And that has led to some people who are not really passionate about the business to go into that line of business. And, 6 months, a year down the line, when they encounter any obstacle or challenges, they get to back off. So starting a business is a serious business itself. And business is very, very different from business. Business is B-U-S-I-Y, business is B-U-S-Y. In terms of advisory service, one important thing that we need to consider is the issue of data and research. Of my over 8 years of experience consulting for startups across 10 African countries, at the core of the challenges I know entrepreneurs face is the fact that you do not really have concrete data or research that led them to starting that business. Mr. A started that business and is making waves, or it's exploring in that line of business. So as a result of that, I think, oh, this is something I can venture into. The 21st century dynamic has made us realize that business is different from just saying you want to do a copycat. What exactly is the unique value proposition? What exactly is the unique selling point? What are you bringing to the table? This is a market that is flooded. If you're going to be competing with over 1,000 African entrepreneurs who are really producing the same category of products you are bringing to the market, what makes you unique? And at the core of this thing are data and research. When you have a data-driven business, it will lead you to say, okay, this is exactly what you want to achieve in the next 1 year, the next 2 years, and in the next 3 years. Another aspect I would like to talk briefly has been talked by Adebola, which is storytelling. It's not just enough for you to say you want to start a business if you are not a very good storyteller. And I quite agree with you. You might not really have this skill. I've once been in your own shoe as well as a tri-sector business leader with investment in consulting, oil and gas, and the agri sector. But you need capacity in terms of, a person in your team that is a storyteller. For example, if you are meeting an excellency, Ahunna, and she has just given you 2 minutes to pitch your business idea, what exactly can you tell her that will make her to get interested in the kind of business you're doing? That is like the elevator speech. Most entrepreneurs have got business, good products, good business, but elevator speech is a big problem. So it's not just enough for you to say, as the CEO, you want to be the manager, you want to be the CTO, you want to be the CFO, you want to be the head of communications. It doesn't really work that way. There is an integral need to build capacity of your team member and have team member that has capacity. Another aspect that I will talk about is the issue of policy. I quite agree with you that most developing countries will encounter different problems like, unfavorable government policy, double taxation, HR issues, corruption. All those points are okay. And like Edith said, we have a choice. The choice is two. You solve that problem or you continue to talk about it. And I don't want us to join the generation of talkers. We need to join the generation of actions and doers. You yourself as an entrepreneur, you are aware of some of those challenges. What exactly are the innovative or creative way through which you can beat some of those bureaucratic bottlenecks as well and be a part of different conversation that will really reshape issues around policy in the kind of business that you're doing? Leveraging technology is also another aspect. Of course, COVID-19 has made us realize that, of course, the world is in a global village. No matter the kind of startups that you are involved or engaged in, how can technology be used to solve it? How can you reach your target market? And how can you simplify it? Who are your target market? How are you reaching them? How can technology make it easier and demystify and democratize the process? Partnership. Partnership is key. I'm an advocate of collaboration, not competition. And for us to really achieve this AfCFTA, there's a need for entrepreneurs to see themselves as collaborators and not competitors, sincerely. If I have a business idea, like I'm a consultant now in terms of business, I've at different times worked with startups in Rwanda, Kenya, and Uganda. I have partners. If I need to physically visit some of the startups, I have other business developers who are in the same field like mine, that I can say, oh, guy, let's collaborate together. I pay you per hour for some of this service. It doesn't really take it away from me. So startups need to develop the mindset and the idea of collaboration and not competition. Another aspect I would like to talk about is logistics. If truly we are going to achieve this, and this is to this appeal is to government and policymakers, there's a need for us to democratize and demystify logistic issues. I've over time had this from African startups that it's crazily expensive to do transactions. Deborah Williams gave a brief overview of how you might have to catch a whole lot of flights before you get to your destination. Then I'm going to wrap it up about issues around governance. Governance is very, very key, and of course, policy changes. As young entrepreneurs, we should not just put our hand about governance. We should not just say, okay, elections or the way we are being ruled in our country is none of our business. Because if we don't take charge, if we are not involved, if we are not engaged, if you're not electing leaders that will really, formulate policy that will make ease of doing business easier for us, if you have built a multi-million-naira business, just a single government policy can drive you out of the business. So key point, build a product for the market. Don't just build a product and start looking for the market. Look inward at your local community and look at solutions that you can build local and can go global. Look at the governance, look at research and data, partnership, leverage your technology, and invest in knowledge and have a good team. So thank you very much once again for giving me the opportunity to share this little idea of mine.
Thank you so much, Abidin. I loved some of the points that you made, but the last idea of building local and then going global. I just love it because for me, I see indeed the very importance first to master, your own market somehow where you are before going beyond, because we are speaking a lot about these cross-borders businesses, but before a business to become cross-border, it has to be a business first. It has to be strong, as you said, and then it can move to other countries and even then other continents, because let's remind here that one of the advantage of this new free trade area is that it's going to kind of level up the continent to other integrated market around the world and allow our businesses to compete at a global level. So I really love that point. And the second point also that you made that was very interesting to me is that let's be a generation of doers and not speakers. And in order to do things, I think information, knowledge is at the basis of any well-prepared action, if I can say so. And there is an organization, YALDA, who is working on a daily basis to bring this information to African youth so that they can act accordingly and really take ownership over their destiny, if I can say so, especially in the context of the AfCFTA. And so we are going to have a quick presentation video of a contest that they're organizing.
My name is Natalie Mukundane, and I am YALDA's East Africa Regional Associate. YALDA stands for Youth Alliance for Leadership and Development in Africa, and it is basically a youth organization founded by students at the University of Harvard with the intention of building Africa for Africans. The aim of this video is to share with you some exciting news regarding a newly launched campaign by YALDA and its partners. And the main purpose of this campaign is to bring closer to you young people the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. We are trying to help you understand what it is and how it can benefit you as a young person. This is because 60% of the population on the continent of Africa are young people, and due to the high rates of unemployment, many young people are venturing into entrepreneurship. But they are facing challenges with the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement that was signed by African heads of state. That means as a young person, you have the ability and the capacity to not only look at the markets in your country, but at the markets in other regions and African countries as well. Now, in collaboration, very distinguished partners, we have together come up with a campaign that is exciting and will involve as many of you as possible. This campaign is called Africa Umoja, youth contributing to the implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Now, this campaign is going to be a series of activities and competitions that will have as many of you as possible involved in spreading awareness regarding the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement and how your neighbor, your sister, your cousin could be involved as well. Now, this campaign is going to start with a series of competitions, and these first competitions are going to be an animation competition, an essay competition, and an infographics competition. Why these three areas? This is because we have noticed how millions of young people are now involved in the creative industry. We want to challenge you into producing the best infographic, the best essay, or the best animation you can master. You will be heavily rewarded as the grand prize winner, and it is not limited to anyone. Any person can participate, even if you're a youth with disability, even if you're a youth out of school as long as you're in the age bracket of 18 to 35. So, tell a friend to tell a friend that the Africa Umoja campaign is on. Let them submit that winning essay, that winning infographic, or that winning animation. To find out more about the competition and get regular updates, be sure to follow Yalda on all our social media handles, as well as all the social media handles of our partners, and then you will get regular updates regarding the competition. Don't you worry, there's still a lot of time. The deadline for all submissions is 30th September. Thank you for listening. Africa Umoja.
Amazing, perfect. Donc, so raising awareness. À la jeunesse, informez-vous, tenez-vous au courant de ces opportunités telles que celles présentées par Yalda. C'est vraiment essentiel afin que tous puissent être inclus dans ce magnifique projet. So now I would like to move to Ivan Atuyambe, the founder and director of ULEAD, who already gave some opening words earlier, and ask a few questions that came up in the chat. So you run a movement of young leaders transforming change across the continent, pushing the voice of the young people on the AfCFTA. What are you looking as a key intervention of impact in the coming weeks and months?
Thank you, Astria. And allow me to just quickly share my screen and say that, first of all, we've just concluded a continental study on the CFTA and African young people. And this study reveals that, among others, there is immensely low awareness, knowledge, and capacity about the CFTA and how young business leaders could engage with it and what they could get out of it. You need to know something better first until you can get anything out of it. And that structural constraints have so far barred youth participation in the processes so far covered of the CFTA, and probably this might remain the same going forward unless addressed as a matter of urgency. The CFTA processes are highly formalized, youth are highly informal on the other hand. And therefore, ULEAD Africa would like to call upon UNDP for a collaboration with African youth through ULEAD Africa, which has a wide range with youth in the business sector, in the policy-making sector across the continent through our continental collaborations. And we should continue on this kind of research, learning, and social dialogues on the CFTA youth inclusion at all stages, and enhancing capacity of them to pursue opportunities under the agreement. And there are just a couple of low-hanging fruits that we think that should be taken forward out of this conversation. One, we should pursue an AfCFTA youth inclusion index, and this is something I'm really interesting UNDP into, as recommended by the just concluded ULEAD study on youth inclusion in the CFTA. The second one, it should continue and plan to do an annual All Africa CFTA summer school or boot camp for youth business leaders, as well as policymakers, to come together to understand this CFTA better and the opportunities and challenges there is and the role of each in order for the CFTA to reach its maximum potential. And third, to embark on a continental African young entrepreneurs documentation, project. This is something like a continental African young exporters documentation and showcasing project. This is very urgent. We don't know what young people are doing in business largely and how they can be supported and what capacity and policy challenges and options they have. So this documentation and showcasing project, I see that the last video tried to look at this, but it's being looked at it from a different angle. We need to see a very elaborate intentional project that reaches out, finds where the youth in business are, like Edith, understand what they do, the successes they are making, and the challenges they face, and how to address them together with them and the policymakers at regional and country level. And fourth is an Africa-wide Entrepreneurs Without Borders Youth Enterprise Award. UNDP has the resources. Together with other partners, we can start a continental movement on supporting youth entrepreneurship without borders. And this should target mainly innovative businesses, innovations for promoting youth export potential of intra-Africa trade by young people of Africa. And lastly, establishing a regional continental youth business support or advisory desks with apex business bodies such as business councils and chambers of commerce, as well as I would like to call upon the CFTA Secretariat to think about establishing a continental youth business advisory desk that deals specially with African young people's business needs and business facilitation support. I think these are the areas that I would see us working on in the next couple of years and going forward. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Ivan, for those very, very concrete proposal to make this work, to make this happen in partnership with UNDP. I particularly love the idea of the index that will provide objective information to change things. We often say that the best way to change something is to start measuring it. So this index could be a great step forward. And we have the chance to have Peter here as the AfCFTA senior advisor at Secretariat, senior advisor. You are in the position to bring messages, you know, from this discussion. So you've heard the discussion, you heard the conversation, you felt, I hope, I think how much the youth is willing to do things on the continent, and especially to grab the opportunities from this agreement. So what are the key messages that you are taking back to the Secretary General?
Yeah, thanks again, Astria. Thanks again, Her Excellency Ahunna, and then Madam Joy. There are a number of messages I'm taking back to His Excellency, the Secretary General, just listening to the discussions that went on, the enthusiasm from the likes of Edith and then some other people. The key messages I'm taking back, one, for example, there's a strong agency for the AfCFTA to get to the people. Listening to the discussions, I have a feeling the youth want to feel the AfCFTA. You want the AfCFTA to be a reality. And this is where I think the AfCFTA Secretariat have a big role to play. Listening to also the discussions, I've also seen that the youth have a lot to offer, but then there's a feeling that there are a number of stumbling blocks. So, for example, access to trade finance, that's a key challenge. But one key information I would like to pass across is that His Excellency, the Secretary General, for example, knows this right from the beginning. And that is why right from the start of the operationalization of the AfCFTA Secretariat, he has been mobilizing resources from the bank. So he intends on setting up a trade finance facility. So the trade finance facility would then help young entrepreneurs that want to that would want to take advantage of the AfCFTA. Another key thing I've also noticed is that we need a strong capacity building pillar. So capacity building in terms of building the capacity of the youth to be able to take advantage of the AfCFTA. So it is in this context I would want to say the ongoing conversation or the discussion that has been started by Her Excellency is a very welcome idea. I would also like to announce to you that there's His Excellency the Secretary General has planned a youth conference that would be coming up very shortly. There's also an African Women Conference on trade that would also be taking place at the end of this month, starting early next month. So these are the key messages I would like to take back to His Excellency the Secretary General. And thanks again, Her Excellency Ahunna. Thanks again, Joy, for organizing this particular event.
Thank you very much, Peter. So thank you, everyone, for this vibrant and fascinating conversation. On my hand, I've learned a lot, and if there are key 3 messages that I take with me today, the first is, of course, that youth is super engaged and super willing to take these opportunities. But as Edith said earlier, they have to do the work, they have to do their part, but of course they won't be able to do it on their own. So the institutions, of course, and especially the Secretariat, are called upon to really involve them and create the tools for them to be informed and, of course, to be trained, capacity building. That's basically what Energy Generation, the organization I founded, it's all about, training young people from all over the continent so that when they are there together, they can start to work together and, of course, starting to learn how to trust together. And this is the last point maybe that I want to raise here, is that, of course, those agreements are necessary from an institutional point of view, but at the end of the day, humans are going to make this work, and humans are all about trust, are all about community, are all about culture, and they are all about love too somehow, and the love of the continent, the love of the development. And I think these words are also mainly inspired by what I know from our very esteemed host today, that I was so honored to accompany in this discussion, Mrs. Ahunna Eziakonwa, who is going to give the closing words of this very intense conversation. Thank you very much, everyone. Merci beaucoup à tous, and the floor is yours, Ahunna.
Thank you very much, Astria, and for your very strong co-hosting presence. It's been a great pleasure working with you on this. So what stays with me as we close? What stays with me is a tapestry of golden thoughts from Africa's next gen, who are going to take FTA to the next level. And what are these golden thoughts? I just imagine now a tapestry where you're weaving different colors and textures to form a beautiful spread. The first one on my list is a huge progress that's been made, demonstrating that this is an ambitious agenda which is achievable. It is as achievable as it is ambitious. As we heard from Ivan earlier, looking at this, from Peter, looking at this possibility of the agreement, which no one thought would come to where it is today. 54 out of 55 countries have signed. 40 countries have ratified. We didn't think this was possible. So that's the first signal, that it is ambitious, but it is achievable. The second on this tapestry is trust. And it came in the words of Adebola, that the absence of trust, that trust deficiency is damaging and will slow us down. And that trust isn't just about trust in the products, it's trust of one another. Africans need to move into a space where the trust was coming out of Africa, where they believe in each other and in the talent and the quality that is there on the continent. The third one is the power of communications, power of storytelling. Africa, in terms of a cultural heritage, has a storytelling culture. Let us dig deep into that cultural heritage and tell the stories differently in ways that capture that perception capital, in ways that control the narrative. Let Africa tell its own story, and let's use Africa's creatives, Africa's entertainers, Africa's musicians, Africa's artists. Let's let AfCFTA leverage that capital as well to tell the stories. The power of digital technologies. Africa can leapfrog. We have lots of challenges on the logistics side and on the infrastructure side, but we also have advantages in the digital technology side. How much can entrepreneurs and businesses leverage digital technology to facilitate their engagement in the market? Governance, that all-important value and principle. And the message to young people: do not have this apathy towards politics and elections. Get out there and engage. The people you elect to govern you are going to a large extent, determine whether you have the right conditions and environment to achieve success through this or not. Don't elect psychopaths, because they will not only slow down progress, they will damage you. So get out there and engage and understand the importance of governance and governing. How about taking business seriously? This is not just about creating jobs. It's about being serious and committed and determined and resilient and tenacious. Business is a serious business. Collaborate more than you compete. Competition is good when it's healthy, but collaboration has to be at the heart of promoting the CFTA. Why? Because we're missing a big picture when we don't partner with others. If you're in the catering business, maybe you don't need to provide and supply for yourself the entire value chain that you need. Maybe you can rely on another supplier for the box that you use to pack the food. So this production value chain, it's about partnership and collaboration, and it's about efficiency. Africa business misses a lot because we miss this connection with each other. Size and scale matter. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area, everyone has mentioned, is the largest by the number of countries that the world has ever seen. Leverage the size and diversity of this market. If it doesn't work in Ghana, go to Tanzania. It has just expanded your choices beyond anything imaginable. Harmonization is the key word when it comes to procedures and regulations. If we're going to have entrepreneurs beyond borders, if it's going to be one market, we have to have uniform level of procedures across those borders. Build local first, and Astria couldn't have said it better. Master your market at home before you can start to have the confidence to venture outside. And I want to perhaps end with what I think was a really important 5 or 6 key points from Ivan of Youth Lead. And we, UNDP, take this very seriously. And I can tell you from where I sit that we will immediately launch action around this. An AfCFTA Youth Inclusion Index, absolutely compelling, and I think a great place to start. A boot camp of sorts, a AfCFTA Academy. People need to know what this is about in order to be able to leverage it. Online directory, Entrepreneurs Without Borders, Youth Business Advisory Desk, name it. I think all of these are important and we take them on board. Finance, great to hear from the Secretariat about the trade financing facility. It has to be that plus, because young people with ideas need financing to put legs to those ideas. And we will be committed to be one of those partners who will be looking for that financing for greater access to it. So, Joy, ladies and gentlemen, this amazing panel that we had today, we owe you a debt because you have put your heart and soul to this and given it your all. And your passion has been infectious, but also the depth of your commitment. So very, very pleased with this panel today and with this discussion. Audience, thank you for your engagement. Your engagement took the conversation to another level. So I end where perhaps we heard from Edith. Be in it to win it for Africa. You, the young people, are the wheels that will make this AfCFTA turn. Don't leave it to others. You are at the heart of it. It succeeds, it fails, depending on the level of engagement and commitment and dedication that you give it. And from my side, I'll say you can continue to count on me to accompany you all the way. Myself and my team and the entire UNDP will be at the disposal, at your disposal in terms of ensuring that the gains from this AfCFTA are also inclusive of youth in terms of benefits, but that you also have the space to influence it in the right direction. So thank you, and back to you, Joy.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ahunna. Thank you so much, Astria, for excellent co-hosting. Thank you for convening us, Ahunna, today. Thank you to all the participants. Thank you to the organizing team at ULEAD. You've done an excellent job. Thank you also to the sign interpreters. You have made us more inclusive. We really appreciate that part of that. It's really a good practice going forward. Thank you to everybody on the UNDP side, all colleagues that have been involved, including from Addis Ababa, who have helped with communications and all of that. It's time really to say goodbye, keep the conversation going on social media, and stay tuned for the next AfCFTA Fireside Chat. Thank you so much. Goodbye.